As we wrap up crop year 2012, we thought it would be a good time to look back at the struggles and triumphs in agriculture this year. To help us with this retrospective, we now turn to This Week in Louisiana Agriculture's Avery Davidson with this week's in-studio guest. Avery?
Mike, if you say nothing else about 2012, it was quite an exciting year, continues to be. Joining me now is Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation President Ronnie Anderson. And Ronnie, of the about 4 times in which I've done this year-end interview with you, I think 3 of those times we've discussed hurricanes, and here we are talking about Isaac again.
Another one this year. It's amazing. I tell you what was interesting about Isaac. It stayed here so long. We had so much rain, but when you look at the ultimate results or damage that it caused, we weathered it pretty good. It was an event that took forever to get over, but if you look at how our farmers handled it, how our insurance company handled it, how our members were able to survive and thrive through it. I think all in all, it was a very interesting year, and we were lucky we didn't have more than just that one.
And I know folks in Plaquemines Parish are still dealing with that. I know that you've been, in touch with the Becknell family there. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, how this one is maybe not as bad as Katrina, but for those guys, it was pretty devastating.
The flooding was terrible in those areas down there. Really devastating. I've been down there several times, and besides the material damage to homes and trees and all of that, the crops, the cattle, everything that was hurt in that particular area was it really wasn't. It was probably as bad or worse than Katrina was when it came through. But when it moved away from that area, I think one of the things that saved us is that Gustav and Ike had knocked so many trees down in the state. We didn't have that problem with this one. And it took those things out. People trimmed and changed and did things around their homes and their barns that lessened the amount of damage that it caused.
Another big issue in 2012 was the river. I mean, the Mississippi River was hitting record lows in some areas because of the drought in the Midwest. How did that really change what was happening here, considering we had a bumper crop up there in the Delta?
Yes, and you go back to last year, we were worried about flooding and drought at the same time. Well, this year we had pretty adequate rain in most places, but the river stages were so low that it hampered the big ships coming up the river, the mouth of the river, and the dredging there. The Commissioner of Agriculture, Mike Strain, really did a lot of good work trying to get funding to do the dredging to keep the river open. But when you get past the mouth of the river, we had to load the barges so much lighter than it was in years before with all the water that was there, and to able to load them to the max. It hindered the process of moving products down the river. The port of Lake Providence had to be dredged out. They couldn't even get a boat in there. So it's interesting, and it's still interesting because the river levels hadn't started going up again. And it's going to create problems for us through the rest of this harvest and moving the crops. It still has to be moved.
Speaking of harvest, we're going to hear in a little bit about the sweet potato harvest. We've been talking a lot about the sugarcane harvest. 2012 as a harvest year, how did our farmers fare?
In general, most did really well. After the storm, there was damage to cane. A lot of cane was blown down, but all reports are that tonnage and sugar content has really been strong in the last few weeks. So that's a good thing for them. Rice, of course, had fair production, but prices were down. Dairy, we had production, but their prices are off. But if you get into the other commodities, most of them had adequate yields and substantially stronger prices than in the past. And all in all, I think if you look at the overall situation, we fared pretty well this year.
Quickly, because we've only got a little time left, your predictions for 2013?
I'm really optimistic. There's been some adjustments in what people will plant. They're watching and monitoring the cost of production and the price of the product that can be harvested. And there's going to be some changes and modifications of what's produced. But all in all, I think we're going to be off to a great start. If you go through the row crop area of the state, they've got so much work done already with the fall that we've had that they're ready for planting, and they're set to go. If we have a normal spring, we're going to be off to a great start.
Oh, we're looking forward to that next year, and hopefully everything starts out perfectly. He is Ronnie Anderson, the president of the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. So, Mike, obviously we had some challenges this year, but we're optimistic we will be able to face some of those other challenges in 2013. Back to you.
Avery Davidson, thanks.